So welcome to process costing. This is a short overview showing mostly the flows within a department, and we'll do a simple sample calculation. So the idea is that when you have when you have something coming into the department, you transfer in a unit, and it of course starts off with 0 direct materials added by the department and 0 conversion costs, which consist of direct labor and manufacturing overhead, all by the department. They get added in at the department level, and then they will be transferred out. So you start off with 0, of course. Then you have a partially completed unit. You'll have some proportion of the direct materials and some proportion of the conversion cost, eventually leading to 100% completion, both of materials and conversion. And then when it's finished, the unit goes on to the next department, or finished goods if that is the last manufacturing department, when you have the finished goods as the output of the department. Now, looking at it from a number of units point of view, here's an example. You start off the time, let's call it a month, with 12 unfinished units with a certain proportion of completion in terms of the direct materials that have been added in the department, and a proportion of the conversion costs that have also been added. And what happens is you have 12 incompleted, so beginning work in process units. Then new units are added. That would be 9 in this case, which means you have 21 entire units to be accounted for. Then, of course, the process occurs in the department. And here we're just showing a visual. And as you can see, with this situation, 14 units were completed. If you calculate here, the 3 times 4, that's 12 plus 2 more. So those units are completed and they will be transferred out, leaving us, of course, with, as you can see, the 7 units which are partially complete. And those are the ending work in process. As you can see, the two numbers must match, because the numbers that you start with, which is the beginning work in process, plus the number of units that enter into production, have to equal the amount that you end with, which is a work in process, and the number that has left the department. Now, let's take a look at the calculations in terms of equivalent units. So, of course, the units that are completed and have been transferred out have 100% of the equivalent direct material and 100% of the equivalent conversion costs that have been applied to them. But with the ending work in process, we'll use the numbers that we had. 90% in terms of material have been added to it, and 60% in terms of conversion cost. So taking the 90% of the 7 units, that gives us the equivalent of 6.3 units, and equivalently the 60% times the 7 units gives us 4.2 equivalent units. So we have ended the period with a completion of 20.3 equivalent units in direct materials and 18.2 units in conversion costs. Now, looking at it from a cost point of view, we started the month with, whatever the period is, with $56 in material and $120 in conversion costs with those units that we began with. The total cost, of course, is 56 plus 120 is 176. Then we cover the costs that were incurred during the period. That would be 350 in material, 1700 in conversion. And total means we have 406 of material to account for and 1,820 of conversion to account for a total of 2,226. Now, if we look what went out, we have total equivalent units. If you can recall, I have it written down here from the previous slide. That's 14 completed units and 6.3 equivalent units, which was the 7 times 90%. That gives us 6.3 equivalent units in terms of direct materials. Similarly, we had 60% times 7 units for the 4.2 plus the 14. So these are the numbers that we have for the total equivalent units. This allows us, if we say this is what we have as an end value, we have the total cost to account for material and conversion, we can now calculate the cost per equivalent unit. So that's simply 406 divided by 20.3 and 1,820 divided by 18.2, which in this example is conveniently $20 and $100. So a completed unit, of course, would give us $120. So we have to reconcile the costs. Let's take a look at now the units completed and transferred out. Those are the 14 units times, in this case, the $20 material cost. 14 times 20 is 280. And then we have 100 times 14, that's 1,400. Total cost is 1,680. Those are the costs that were transferred out. And the remaining, of course, is ending work in process. And for the material, remember we have, focusing again here, we have 6.3 units. So 6.3 equivalent units times 20. 20 times 6.3 is 126. And then for the conversion costs, we have 4.2 as is written down here. And there we have 4.2 times 100 is 420. What does that all add up to? It adds up to 406 for the materials. And here 1820 for the conversion costs, which match as well as the 2,226. It matches exactly the numbers that we had on the side from the costs coming in. Hopefully that would have helped, and thank you for your attention. Of course, to go into more details, we'll have to look at detailed examples and explanations, but this is an idea of how it works in general. Thanks again.